The desert wind howled across Ferris Air's runway, carrying with it the smell of jet fuel and the promise of danger. Hal Jordan had always lived for this. The sky was his sanctuary, the cockpit his cathedral. Born the son of Martin Jordan, a decorated test pilot, Hal grew up watching his father dance with the clouds. But heroism has a cost. One bright morning, in a routine test flight gone horribly wrong, young Hal watched from the stands as his father's jet spiraled into the ground, erupting into a ball of fire. That moment, frozen in time, carved a scar deep into his heart, one that would define his life. Years later, Hal had followed in his father's footsteps, becoming one of the most skilled yet reckless pilots in the Air Force. He had courage, yes, but also a streak of arrogance. In the air, fear had no place. On the ground, however, it often found him in memories, in quiet moments, in shadows that never quite left. It was on a day like any other that his destiny collided with the infinite. While testing a prototype jet, a blinding emerald light engulfed his aircraft. Instruments failed, controls went dead. The light wasn't a hallucination, it was pulling him, guiding him toward something, someone. He ejected, parachuting into a barren canyon where he found the wreckage of an alien craft. Inside lay Abin Sur, a wounded figure bathed in the same emerald glow. His crimson skin was marred by burns, his breath shallow. In his hand a ring, unlike anything Hal had ever seen, humming with energy older than Earth itself. The alien's voice was faint, but his words cut through the desert air with the weight of prophecy. You, Hal Jordan, you have the ability to overcome great fear. With those final words, the ring lifted from Abin Sur's hand, hovering. Before Hal it spoke to him without sound, without language, reaching directly into his mind. You have been chosen. The metal was cool against his skin, yet alive, wrapping itself around his finger. In an instant, emerald light consumed him, lifting him off the ground and clothing him in armor woven from pure willpower. The world around him changed. The desert vanished, replaced by visions, constellations unfolding like an endless map. Alien cities suspended in nebulae, beings of every shape and size, wearing the same glowing emblem on their chests. And then, a voice, many voices, speaking, as one, in brightest day, in blackest night, no evil shall escape my sight. Let those who worship evil's might, beware my power, Green Lantern's light. The words etched themselves into Hal's soul, binding him to an ancient brotherhood, the Green Lantern Corps, defenders of the universe for millennia. But this was no dream. As the visions faded, Hal felt the weight of responsibility settle on him like the gravity of 1,000 worlds. His first test came quickly. A shockwave rippled across the desert sky. The same force that had crippled Abin Sur's ship still lingered nearby. The ring, as if sensing his uncertainty, guided him. Emerald constructs sprang from his imagination, a shield to block falling debris, a giant hand to pull civilians from wreckage. Each creation felt both instinctive and alien, as though the ring knew his will better than he did. And yet, in the midst of this chaos, Hal understood something profound. Bravery wasn't about never feeling fear. It was about facing it head-on, refusing to yield. The ring didn't choose him because he was fearless. It chose him because he could act despite his fear. As the dust settled, the glow around him dimmed, and Hal stared at his hands at the ring. His old life as just a man, just a pilot, was gone. Before him lay an infinite sky, each star a world that might one day call for his help. Somewhere out there, dangers far greater than he could imagine were already moving in the dark. The desert wind returned, but it no longer smelled of jet fuel. Now it carried the scent of ozone and stardust. And as Hal Jordan stood under that alien sky, one truth crystallized in his mind. This was no longer about flying faster, higher, or farther. This was about protecting everything. And for the first time since his father's death, Hal felt something greater than grief or fear. He felt purpose, and with it, the unshakable will to shine his light where darkness dared to spread. The stars were no longer distant to Hal Jordan. They were a roadmap. The ring had wasted no time in pulling him toward its source of power, the planet O, the beating heart of the Green Lantern Corps. In the blink of an eye, Earth's blue sky vanished, replaced by the velvet black of space, streaked with distant suns. Hal's breath caught, not from fear, but from awe. Space wasn't silent as he'd imagined. The ring translated vibrations of energy into a constant, low hum. as though the cosmos itself was singing. OA emerged from the void like an emerald jewel, its surface covered in gleaming citadels and towers of light. He could see thousands, maybe tens of thousands of lanterns descending toward the central plaza, each one radiating the same green aura as himself. Some resembled humans, others were beings of pure energy, winged reptiles, crystalline giants, every species imaginable, and some that defied imagination, was represented here. Waiting at the center were the guardians of the universe, diminutive, ancient beings with eyes that seemed to hold the birth of galaxies. Their leader spoke with a voice that was calm yet carried the weight of cosmic law. Hal Jordan of Sector 2814. The ring has chosen you. You will be trained and you will be judged. Fail to meet our standards and the ring will find another. Hal swallowed hard. This wasn't a welcome, it was a warning. His first teacher was Kilowog, a massive, boar-faced warrior whose sheer size made Hal feel like a rookie again. Kilowog wasted no time breaking him down. Listen, Pooza, Kilowog's deep voice rumbled. This ain't about fancy flying. This is about willpower. The ring doesn't do the work. You do. Training pushed Hal to his limits. The ring could create anything he could imagine. Shields, weapons, vehicles, but only if he had the focus and will to hold it. Doubt weakened the construct. Fear shattered it. Some days, Hal was sent into simulated combat against Sinestro, the Corps' most skilled tactician. Others, he sparred with alien warriors in zero gravity, where his every move was tracked by thousands of watchful eyes. And at night, under the green-lit sky of OA, he listened to stories from veterans who had seen suns collapse, fought wars that spanned centuries, and faced enemies so ancient they had no name. Slowly, Hal learned the truth. The Green Lantern Corps wasn't just a military force, it was a network of guardians, each assigned to a sector of the universe, each bound by the same oath. And Sector 2814, his sector, included Earth, Mars, and countless worlds he had never even heard of. Hal's trial came sooner than expected. A distress call echoed through OA's communication network. A mining colony on the edge of a red dwarf star was under attack. With Kilowog at his side, Hal launched into space, the ring propelling him faster than any jet could dream. When they arrived, the scene was chaos. A swarm of alien raiders, clad in scavenged armor, tore through the colony's defenses. Hal's heart pounded. His instincts screamed at him to wait, to plan. But Kilowog had already charged ahead, constructs blazing. Hal gritted his teeth and followed. The ring responded to his emotions. The sharper his focus, the stronger his constructs. He imagined a barrage of fighter jets, each one a perfect replica of the aircraft he'd flown on Earth, swooping through the enemy ranks. The raiders scattered, stunned by the sudden emerald assault. But then came the real test. A blast from one of the raiders' weapons tore a hole in the colony's habitat dome. Air roared into the vacuum, carrying screaming miners toward the void. Hal didn't think he acted. The ring created a massive, glowing barrier, sealing the breach and holding it until emergency repairs could be made. When the dust cleared, Kilowog gave him a rare nod. Not bad, Pooza. You might just make it. Back on OA. Hal stood before the Guardians once more. He expected judgment. Instead, Ganthot spoke. You have shown the will to protect not only your home, but the homes of others. You are now the Lantern of Sector 2814. The title felt heavier than the stars themselves. This wasn't just about Earth anymore. His responsibility stretched across light years. Every call for help, every spark of danger in the dark, was his to answer. And so Hal Jordan returned to Earth. But it was different now. The city skyline no longer seemed large. It was just one tiny corner of his sector. The night sky no longer looked empty. It was alive with worlds, each one relying on the light of the cores. He knew challenges were coming. He knew fear would try to creep back in. But the oath was etched into him now, unshakable. In brightest day, in blackest night, no evil shall escape my sight. And with that, Hal Jordan, test pilot, soldier, and now intergalactic peacekeeper, took his place among the stars. The Green Lantern Corps had taught Hal Jordan many things: discipline, focus, the nature of willpower. But the most difficult lesson was this: not all threats came from the darkness. Some came from within the light itself. When Hal first met Sinestro, he carried himself with the unshakable confidence of a living legend. The Corrugarian lantern was everything Hal aspired to be: precise, fearless, and utterly devoted to order. The two were paired on missions more and more often, and Hal soon realized why Sinestro's reputation was unmatched. He won every time, but victory came at a cost. On a mission to Corruga, Hal discovered the truth. Sinestro wasn't just protecting his homeworld, he was ruling it. The people lived in fear of his power, their every action monitored, their freedoms stripped away for the greater good. Hal confronted him. "We're supposed to protect life, not control it." Sinestro's response was cold, calculated. "You're still thinking like a human, Jordan. The universe doesn't need freedom, it needs order. And fear is the most reliable way to enforce it." The Guardians were less forgiving. Sinestro was stripped of his rank and cast out, his ring replaced with a new one forged from the yellow light of fear, a weapon he would wield to build his own army. Thus began the rise of the Sinestro Corps, and Hal's most personal enemy. If Sinestro's betrayal was a wound, Parallax was the poison that followed. The entity wasn't a person, it was a living embodiment of fear itself. Older than the Guardians, older than the Corps, it had been trapped for millennia, until it found Hal Jordan. It began subtly. Hal's dreams grew darker, his constructs flickered at moments of hesitation. Missions that once felt exhilarating now carried a creeping sense of dread. And when tragedy struck, the destruction of Coast City in a cataclysmic alien attack, the door was thrown wide open. Grief turned to desperation, desperation to obsession, obsession to rage. Parallax whispered that the ring's power could fix everything, bring the city back, undo the loss. All Hal had to do was take more, and he did, in a moment that would haunt him forever. Hal defied the Guardians, fought his way to Oe, and absorbed the full energy of the central power battery. The light that once symbolized hope and willpower now blazed with corruption. The man who had been the Corps' brightest star became its destroyer. The name Hal Jordan became a curse among the surviving lanterns. Some said he'd been corrupted beyond saving. Others swore he was never the hero they believed him to be. Worlds that had once cheered at the sight of the emerald light now hid in fear. And yet, deep within the darkness, a part of Hal still fought. He didn't understand it at the time, but the whispers weren't his thoughts. They were Parallax's, a parasite feeding on his fear and amplifying it until nothing else could be heard. The Guardians, desperate to stop him, turned to others: John Stewart, Guy Gardner, and Kyle Rayner, each carrying the light in their own way. But even united, they barely stood against the force Hal had become. In the end, it wasn't the cause that stopped him, it was Hal himself. In a moment of clarity, Hal saw the destruction he'd caused, the lives he'd taken, the light he'd nearly extinguished. Parallax roared within him, refusing to let go. But Hal did the one thing the entity could not predict. He chose to sacrifice himself, using every ounce of willpower he had left. Hal guided the stolen energy away from the battery and into the path of an ancient cosmic threat, obliterating it at the cost of his own life. The Corps mourned him. Earth remembered him as both hero and traitor, never agreeing which came last. The ring passed to another, and Sector 2814 found a new guardian, but death, in the vast tapestry of the universe, is rarely the end. Death, for most, is the end of the story. For Hal Jordan, it was the beginning of a second chapter that would define him even more than the first. When Hal's body died, his soul did not vanish into the void. Instead, it found itself adrift in a realm between worlds. Here, he encountered something ancient, primal, the spirit of vengeance, known as the Spectre. The Spectre was God's wrath, made manifest, an unstoppable force that punished the guilty with cosmic finality. But its power required a human host, to anchor it, a conscience, to temper judgment with mercy. In Hal Jordan, it found not only a vessel, but a man seeking redemption. Becoming the Spectre was unlike anything Hal had experienced as a lantern. The ring's light had been shaped by his will. The Spectre's power was shaped by divine mandate. He could not save everyone. He could not protect indiscriminately. He could only judge. And so, in this spectral form, Hal roamed the multiverse, destroying demons, erasing evil from existence, and wrestling with his own guilt. But the Spectre's mantle was not a permanent prison. Deep within Hal's soul, the ember of the Green Lantern still burned, waiting for the day it could shine again. That day came when Parallax's true nature was revealed to the universe. The Guardians admitted what they had long hidden. Parallax was not Hal's weakness, but an external parasite that had exploited his grief. With this truth came an opportunity and a choice in a convergence of cosmic will. The Spectre's power was separated from Hal's spirit, and Parallax was exorcised from his soul. What remained was the man himself, flawed but unbroken. His body, preserved against all odds, drew in breath once more. The ring, as if it had been waiting all along, returned to his finger. Hal Jordan, Green Lantern of Sector 2814, lived again. Rejoining the cause was no easy homecoming. Some Lanterns embraced him as a brother restored. Others remembered only the cities he'd leveled, the comrades lost to his fall. Trust, Hal knew, had to be earned, and he was willing to fight for it. And fight he did. From the resurgence to the Sinestro Corps War, Hal threw himself into every battle with the same relentless will that had once made him the Corps' brightest light. Only now, that will was tempered by humility. When Sinestro returned at the head of an army wielding the yellow light of fear, Hal did not shy away. He confronted his former mentor face to face, not as the brash rookie he'd once been, but as an equal. Their battles were not just of strength and strategy, but of ideology, will versus fear, freedom versus control. The greatest test of Hal's second life came when the dead themselves rose to wage war against the living. The Black Lantern Corps, fueled by the power of death, swept across the universe. Every fallen hero, every long-dead villain, returned as an unfeeling weapon of the darkness. Hal, alongside the leaders of every emotional spectrum, rage, compassion, love, hope, fear, forged an uneasy alliance to confront the threat. In the heart of this war, Hal once again faced his own death, his own sins, and the lingering ghost of Parallax. But this time, he did not stand alone. The Corps stood with him, the Spectrum stood with him, and together, they brought light to the blackest night. Today, Hal Jordan is more than just a Green Lantern. He is a symbol of resilience, proof that even the brightest lights can falter, that redemption is possible, and that willpower, once reignited, can burn hotter than ever. He has flown through supernovas, wrestled with gods, and stared into the abyss without blinking. But if you asked him, he would tell you that the greatest thing he's ever done isn't saving worlds. It's earning back the trust of those he once failed. For Hal Jordan, the oath is not just words, it's a promise, one he keeps with every breath. In brightest day, in blackest night, no evil shall escape my sight. Let those who worship evil's might beware my power, Green Lantern's light. The stars are endless, the threats are endless, but so is his will. And as long as there is darkness in the universe, there will be one man who dares to stand against it. Hal Jordan, the light that never dies.